Hello all, welcome to Metis IAS. So, we have been discussing so far about the chapter of Indian Parliament, and about the Indian Parliament we have covered almost all the aspects. But having said that, we know that the Indian Parliament generally meets thrice a year. Okay, that is, there are three sessions. There is a budget session, there is a monsoon session, as well as there is a winter session. So a lot of bills are being introduced, and once the bills are being introduced, then debates go on in the Parliament, discussions go on, deliberations go on, and we also know that certain times there is walkout, sloganeering, disruptions in the House, etc. So these things happen during the course of the working of the Indian Parliament. And while these things happen during the course of the working of Indian Parliament, we also listen to a statement saying that the bills should be referred to the committees. The bills should be referred to the committees. So in this chapter, we will try to understand, or we will deal, or we will analyze what exactly are these committees that we are speaking about, or there is something called as parliamentary committees. So we'll try to understand what is this parliamentary committee in this video. Now, as the name suggests, let us break down this. Let us break down this. So the word is parliamentary committee. So we know that committee is basically nothing but a group of members coming together, a group of members coming together. Now, and when we say parliamentary committee, what type of committee is this? Then this is a type of committee which has the members of the parliament. So this has the members of the parliament. So in simple words, a parliamentary committee is a specialized panel of members of the parliament. Okay. Now, who are these members? They are either appointed or elected by the house itself. That is, from within the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, these members are appointed or elected. Or sometimes they are even nominated directly by the speaker or chairperson of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, respectively. So, in simple words, what are these parliamentary committees? Parliamentary committees are nothing but a panel of members of parliament. Okay. So, parliamentary committees are nothing but a panel of members of parliament. Now, what is the need of this parliamentary committee? What is the need of this parliamentary committee? Now, for that very particular purpose, let us try to understand the working of the parliament. Now, as we discussed, there is a parliament, and the Indian parliament meets thrice a year. That is, three sessions are held, and every time, as again I told, the bills are introduced. There is accountability of the legislature, accountability of the executive by the legislature, debates, deliberations, disruptions, etc. All the things are happening where are happening within the parliament of the country. Okay. Now, whatever is happening within the parliament, that is the work of the parliament that is taking place on the floor of the house, is being televised and closely watched. Is being televised and closely watched. Watched by who? Watched by the common people of India who elect their representatives. Who elect their representatives. Okay. Now, when it is being watched, don't you think these members of the parliament, and another thing is they are also being watched by their own party members. Okay, so when that is the case, don't you think these members of the parliament always try to adhere by their party's directives and not work on their freedom or inner conscience? That is the case. Now, this parliamentary committee is something, or it is a panel. It is the panel that generally works behind the closed doors. Now, to make things very simple, now we know that there is a legislative business that is going on within the parliament. Whenever a bill is introduced or whenever there is accountability that has to happen, there is a business that is happening where in the parliament. Okay, but the thing is, this process of lawmaking is very, very complex. Now, why it is very complex? Because not every members can speak, not every members will have the knowledge about the law that is being introduced. Not every member will have an expertise about a particular law that is being introduced. And also another very important thing is Parliament has very limited time for a detailed discussion. Parliament has a very limited time for a detailed discussion. So, for one bill that is being introduced, not every member of the Parliament can sit and can stand and speak. And another very important thing is the members of the Parliament will get a time to speak in the Parliament as per the numbers their party hold in the parliament. That is, the ruling party obviously will have more time to speak. The opposition parties will have less time to speak. Now, and another very important thing is we know that there is a very, very deepening political polarization that is happening within the Indian parliament. The people of the ruling party and the people of the opposition party, or the MPs of ruling party and MPs of opposition party, do not see face to face. And the middle ground that is required is also been shrinking. All this is leading to inconclusive debates in the Parliament of India. Right now, when this is the case, when this is the case, a great deal of legislative business, which has to happen in the parliament, is slowly being shifted to where? To the parliamentary committees. Is slowly being shifted to where? To the parliamentary committees. So this is what we say. This crucial function of the parliament is currently being carried out by the parliamentary committees, which are often referred to as the workhorses of democracy. So these parliamentary committees are coming to be called as workhorses of democracy. And at this point of time, it is also important to recall what former US President Woodrow Wilson said. The former US President Woodrow Wilson actually said that it is not far from the truth to say that the Congress in session is Congress on public exhibition, whilst the Congress in committee rooms is the Congress at work. Now, what is the Congress that he is referring here? Woodrow Wilson is referring the Congress as nothing but the US Parliament. The US Parliament, or the body that is similar to the Parliament to the US, is what we call as the Congress in US. So he says the Congress in session is the Congress on public exhibition. That is, it is in session, or the members of the Congress are there not to perform their work, but they are on a public exhibition. While the Congress in committee, that is the Congress in the parliamentary committee, or the Congress in its committee room, is the actual Congress that is at work. So this shows the importance of parliamentary committees in a democracy. Even if you take India, the actual work of the parliament is not happening inside the parliament. Rather, it is mostly seen where? It is mostly seen in the working of the parliamentary committees. Now the question is, do these parliamentary committees find a mention in the Constitution of India? Directly, no. Directly, they are not finding their mention in the Constitution of India. So, hence, it is easy to say that these parliamentary committees are what we call as extra constitutional in nature. What is extra constitutional? Something that is not present in the Constitution of India. So, we can safely say that these parliamentary committees are extra constitutional in nature. But do their roots find in the Indian Constitution? Yes, their roots find in the Indian Constitution, such as Article 105. What is Article 105? Article 105 speaks about the privileges of the parliamentary members. That is the freedom with which they can speak, that nobody can interfere in their working. And similarly, Article 118, which speaks or which grants the power of the parliament to establish the rules for regulating its procedure and conduct of business. Now, it is based on these two articles we see a lot of parliamentary committee being established in a parliamentary democracy like India. It is based on these two articles, that is Article 105 and Article 108. We see a lot of parliamentary committees doing its work in India. Okay. Now, having said that, where did we get the roots of parliamentary democracy, or where did we get the roots of parliamentary committees in India? The roots of parliamentary committee in India also goes back to the British Parliament, to the British Parliament. So it is from Britain that we took the aspects of what we call as parliamentary committees. And another very important thing was this parliamentary committee was first established in the year 1571. In the year 1571 in Britain. In the year 1571, this parliamentary committee was set up first in Britain. And another very important thing is the Public Account Committee as such. The most important of the parliamentary committee is what we call as PAC or Public Account Committee. And this was established for the first time in the year 1861. In the year 1861, we see the Public Account Committee being established for the first time. And not just that, this Public Account Committee in independent India was established for the first time in the year 1950. In the year 1950. So, this is a short history of the parliamentary committees that we see today. Now, continuing about the importance of parliamentary committees, it is important for us to shed a light on certain things about the working of the parliament. For example, in the last 10 years, the Parliament of India has met only for approximately 67 days on an average per year. How many days? 67 days on an average per year. Okay, so only in an year they are meeting how many days? They are meeting only for 67 days. Now when this is the case, do you think the MPs can get into the depth of the matters being discussed in the house? No, that is not the case. So the MPs cannot go into the depth of the matter that is being discussed. And also, it is this vacuum that the parliamentary committees are going to fulfill. That is, these parliamentary committees, they meet not just when the sessions are held, rather, they can meet throughout the year. So, they help make up for this lack of time available on the floor of the house. Now, one important act that I want to bring to your notice is an act called as Surrogacy Regulation Act. Okay. Now, I hope everybody knows what is surrogacy. What is surrogacy? That is a surrogate mother giving birth to giving biological birth to the children which is not actually hers. Okay, so that is what we call as surrogacy. So there was an act that came up in the year 2016. Okay, there was an act that came up which regulated surrogacy in India, and this act came up in the year 2016. Okay, now this act prohibited commercial surrogacy but allowed for altruistic surrogacy. What is altruistic surrogacy? Something you can link it with this selfless surrogacy, not doing it for the sake of money. Now, tell me, in Indian Lok Sabha or considering Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha together, there are approximately 750 to 800 MPs that are present in the Parliament of India. Now, when that is the case, do you think all the MPs who are coming from the diverse backgrounds, do they have the required expertise to understand the details around surrogacy, such as fertility issues, abortion, regulation of surrogacy clinics, etc.? That is not the case. Only very few members will have the idea about this surrogacy. So when this bill was referred to the parliamentary committees, so this bill was referred to the parliamentary committees, it included only those members who has an idea about surrogacy, and this committee called upon the stakeholders, including people like National Commission for Women, government officials, different doctors, to better understanding the different issues arising out of surrogacy before finalizing a report and submitting it to the parliament. So this is how the parliamentary committees are finding their work. So, having understood what these parliamentary committees are, now let us try to understand the utility or what benefits these parliamentary committees are going to bring to the table. The first thing is these parliamentary committees or their meetings are generally held closed door. Okay. Now, when I say closed door, that is, it is not televised, it is not held in front of the different representatives of the party, or it is not held in front of the media. Now, when this is the case, what actually happens is the members of these committees are not bound by their party whips. Now, when I say they are not bound by the party whips, okay, they are not bound by the party whips. That is, they are not bound by the directions given by the party, which allows them the opportunity, or which allows them a chance for a more meaningful exchange of views as against the discussions that are held full and open houses. Okay. Now, what generally happens is in the parliament, the party's directives will be there saying that you have to speak in this manner. This will be televised, and like the people who voted for these members will also be looking into it. The media will also be covering the aspects. So what happens is the members, the parliamentary members will not be having the freedom or liberty to speak in a very like to speak without any hesitations. But what happens in parliamentary committees are that these parliamentary committee meetings, they are held behind the doors or closed doors, and through this what happens is the members can engage in a more frank and detailed discussions without the public glare. And also, as I said, this privacy means that the members are not bound by party whips, allowing for more independent and objective analysis. Okay. Now, this is one utility the parliamentary committee is going to bring. Another thing is, now generally what happens in the parliament is there is a lot of information and there is a lot of operations that are going on in the Indian parliament. Okay. Now when that is the case, as we discussed, it is not feasible or it is not viable to take up all the issues in the on the floor of the house or on the floor of the parliament. So parliamentary committees are formed to deal with such situations, And these parliamentary committees, what they do is they go into the details of a specific piece of legislation. That is, each law will have different clauses. So they can go into different clauses one by one, and they can also analyze the impact these clauses or this bill is going to bring on the governance aspect. Is it going to make any benefit? Is it going to make any challenges? Is it going to be difficult to implement this law, etc.? All these things are considered by these parliamentary committees. So these parliamentary committees basically they refine the bills, they identify the unforeseen consequences, and they formulate the informed recommendations before they reach the full house for debate. So that is basically after considering all these aspects, they are going to give their recommendations. So this is another positive aspect the parliamentary committee is going to bring. Another very important thing is this government. Okay, whenever the parliamentary committee is formed and the parliamentary committee gives certain suggestions, the government has to take up what we call as, they have to give a report called as action taken report. Okay, called as action taken report. Now what is this action taken report? Basically, based on the recommendations given by the committee, what action the government has taken, whether the government has implemented it, whether the government has disowned it, whatever the government does, the government has to bring in a report called as action taken report. But the most important thing is, see, even though these parliamentary committees, okay, these parliamentary committees are not binding on the government. That is, whatever advice they are going to give, it is not that the government has to follow it. It is not mandatory for the government to follow it. That is what we say, that the parliamentary committees reports are not binding on the government. Even though the reports are not binding on the government, the suggestions that are given by the parliamentary committees, they have a lot of weightage. They have a lot of weightage, and they help the legislature ensure an oversight on the executive. Now, one example that I want to give you is during the 2023 budget session, okay, during the year 2023, okay. So every year there will be a budget session, okay. So what happened during the 2023 budget session was that, so there was a report that was tabled on the demand for grants that were raised, okay. So what happened was that the Ministry of Panchayat Raj was allotted 905 crore rupees. How much? 905 crore rupees was allotted to the Ministry of Panchayati Raj. Now, out of this 905 crore rupees, the Ministry of Panchayati Raj was able to spend only 701 crore rupees. Okay. Now, this assessment or this factor or this fact came out when the parliamentary committee or when the estimates committee took up the matter, when the estimates committee, one of the parliamentary committee took up the matter and they had a detailed analysis. Okay, this matter had to only then this matter came out. So these are the utilities the parliamentary committees is going to bring. And another very important thing that I want to highlight to you is, I mean, in the recent years, if we consider the recent years, the most important thing the parliamentary committee has done is basically with respect to the digital data protection bill, okay, which is now an act actually. Okay, now what happened was that in 2017, there was case Puttaswamy judgment. Now, this Puttaswamy judgment, what it did was, it recognized privacy as a fundamental right. Okay. Now, once privacy was said as a once privacy was ruled out as a or ruled as a fundamental right, okay, then it became important to protect even the digital data of the individuals that are available online. So a committee was formed called as Justice Sri Krishna Committee was formed, and it was tasked with preparing a data protection framework for India. Now, what happened was that this committee presented a final 166-page report in 2018. And this report covered everything from the data processing, data storage, data rights, data enforcement. Okay. Now, based on this committee report, what happened was that there was a bill called as Personal Data Protection Bill of 2019. PDB, that is Personal Data Protection Bill of 2019, was tabled in the Lok Sabha. Now, once this bill was tabled in the Lok Sabha, this bill was referred to another committee, a joint parliamentary committee. Now, what is a joint parliamentary committee? Joint parliamentary committee is nothing but a committee which has the members of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So, a joint parliamentary committee chaired by PP Chowdhury. Okay, to this committee, this report was given, and this committee came out with a report in the year 2021. In the year 2021, this Chowdhury committee is coming out on a report based on the basically personal data protection bill. Okay. And once the committee report was given, the committee actually changed or said a lot of things against the content that was present in this personal data protection bill. Now, what the parliament did was, owing to the recommendation of this Chowdhury committee, this bill was withdrawn and a new draft data protection bill was introduced in the year 2022. Okay, so this is how the committees work. The parliament recommends the committee to do certain work. The committee does the homework. The committee does the work from bottom to the top. It covers the entire thing and gives its recommendations. And most of the times, the government accepts the recommendation given by the committee. Okay, so this is how the committee works. Now, not just that, these committees, they actually work closely with multiple ministries. For example, we took the example about surrogacy bill, right? Now, when a surrogacy bill has to be decided, Ministry of Health has to be there, Ministry of Women and Child Development has to be there. So what is happening is these committees has to work with multiple ministries, and they facilitate interministerial coordination, and they facilitate what we call as interministerial coordination. Okay. Now, also another very important thing is the committees that looks. Okay, another very important thing is this committee also has certain authority. Now, what is the authority that this committee has? The committee has certain authority that, for example, when a parliamentary committee is formed, and when this parliamentary committee is working, if this parliamentary committee is inviting somebody to come in front of them, let us assume this parliamentary committee is asking me to be present in front of the parliamentary committee. Now, this is equivalent to that of a summons from a court. That is, if there is a notice or summons from the court saying that we have to be physically present, don't we abide by it? Yes, we abide by it. If we don't abide by it, it leads to contempt of the court. Similarly, what invitation given by the parliamentary committee. Okay, the invitation to appear before the parliamentary committee is also equivalent to that of the summons of the court. Okay, and if one cannot come, he or she has to give the reasons which the panel may or may not accept also. Okay, that is very important thing. Okay, now this authority ensures that the government officials and the experts, they provide necessary information and are held accountable to whom? To the parliamentary committee. Now, another very important thing is beyond the scrutinizing and coordinating roles, parliamentary committees also play a unique opportunity for cross pollination of ideas and perspectives between the two chambers of the parliament. That is, for example, we spoke about something called as joint parliamentary committee. Now, what is a joint parliamentary committee? Basically, it has members from both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So, this parliamentary committee provides an opportunity for members of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha to sit together and discuss on a particular thing. And also another very important thing is these parliamentary committees, they are also are acting as a crucial forum for public engagement. That is, they not only consult the domain experts, but they also actively invite comments and feedbacks from the wider public. That is, from people like us also, they are inviting comments and feedback, thereby ensuring that the diverse voices are heard in the policy making process. And another very important thing is these parliamentary committees, they serve as invaluable platform for building vital consensus across the often divided political parties, fostering a spirit of bipartisan cooperation for national interest. Because we also know that, and also we discussed in detail that this parliamentary committee, or whenever a bill is introduced in the parliament, we see, or the bridge between the parliament, the bridge between the political parties are so much divided that the people of different political parties or the members of parliament representing different political parties, it is almost impossible for them to come on a consensus on a particular thing based for a national interest purpose. But what is happening in public, I mean, what is happening in parliamentary committees is that parliamentary committees provides that platform for building this vital consensus across the different political parties, fostering a spirit of bipartisan cooperation for national interest. So these are some of the utilities which the parliamentary committees are going to bring to the table. Now, now it is important for us to understand the different types of parliamentary committees. The different types of parliamentary committees. Now when I say different types of parliamentary committees, these types of parliamentary committees actually can be seen from two perspectives. They can actually be seen from two perspectives. Okay. Now, what are these two perspectives that we see the classification of parliamentary committees? Now, the first perspective is that there is a committee called as, or there is a type of or category of committee called as standing committee, and there is another category of committee called as ad hoc committee. Now, what is a standing committee? Now, the standing committee means the existence of this committee is uninterrupted, and that is, for example, the standing committee is something that is formed on a permanent basis. Okay, the standing committee is something that is formed on a permanent basis. Now, when I say permanent basis, won't this committee get dissolved? Yes, this committee is also going to get dissolved. But after every 1 year, this committee is going to be reconstituted again. And this is what we call as select committee. And this is what we call as select committee. Now, then there is something called as ad hoc committee. Now, what is this ad hoc committee? Now, the best example for the ad hoc committee is something that we discussed about digital data protection bill. That is, in order to discuss about this digital data protection bill, a committee was formed having or involving members of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. That is, for this specific purpose, a committee was formed, or a committee was formed for a temporary nature. That is, once the work of the committee is completed, once the work of the committee is completed, this committee is going to get dissolved. That is, they have the work only on a temporary basis. And that is what we call as ad hoc committees. So one classification is it can be divided into standing committees and ad hoc committees. Now, then there is also another classification of the parliamentary committees which we generally see. That is, the first type of committee is financial committee. Then we also have something called as departmentally related standing committee. Then we also have something called as other parliamentary standing committees. And then we have something called as ad hoc committee. Now, this is another classification. Now, let us try to understand each ad hoc committee. Sorry, each different types of committee that is present in this classification. Now, let us start with the last, that is ad hoc committee. Now, ad hoc committee is something that we discussed already. That is, basically, they are formed for a specific purpose. For instance, to deliberate on a particular bill. For example, if they want to deliberate on digital data protection bill, for that very particular purpose, a committee is formed. And once this bill is discussed and certain recommendations are given by the committee, that is, once the bill is disposed of, that committee is going to cease to exist. And this is what we call as ad hoc committee. Okay. Now, this is the first type of committee. Now, now, now let us try to understand. Now let us try to understand what is this departmental related standing committee? What is this departmental related standing committee? Now, okay. Now, have you heard this term departmental related standing committee anywhere else in our video lectures? If you have watched the video lectures very carefully, if you have watched the video lectures very carefully, if you have been attentive in the class that we have been giving, then departmentally related standing committees is not something new to you, because this is something that we have already discussed while discussing the chapter of budget. Now, what is this? That is, for example, we discussed that the budget is presented by the finance minister. After that discussion on the budget is done, then the house is adjourned for 3 to 4 weeks. And it is at this point of time that the 24 departmentally related standing committees, they come together and they see for which ministry how much money has to be given. And it is based on this committee's recommendation that the demand for grants will be given. And this is what we call as departmentally related standing committee. Then we have other parliamentary standing committee. Now, what are these other parliamentary standing committees? We will discuss them in detail. And then we have something called as financial committee. Now, this financial committee is something very, very, very important. Now, why this financial committee is important, I'll tell you. I'll tell you why this financial committee is important. Now, we know that there is a fund called as Consolidated Fund of India. And if a money has to be withdrawn from this or any operations of the government of India which requires money, the money is generally withdrawn from this Consolidated Fund of India. And we know that if the money has to be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund of India, then whose approval is required? Then it is the Parliament whose approval is required. So, in simple words, can I say that financial control is a critical tool for Parliament's authority over the executive, right? Now, when this is the case, let us assume Parliament withdraws money or Parliament authorizes the withdrawal of the money from the Consolidated Fund of India, right? Now, this money that is being withdrawn will be spent by the government. Now, who will be auditing this money? There is an authority in our constitution called as CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Now, it is this authority who is going to audit the money that is being used by the government. Now, whatever auditing the CAG does, okay, but we know that the ultimate authority with respect to financial accountability is Parliament. So whatever the auditing the CAG does, who is going to look into these audits whether they are proper or not? These are done by financial committees, or in specific in financial committee there is a committee called as Public Account Committee. In financial committee there is a committee called as Public Account Committee. So it is this Public Account Committee that is going to say whether the auditing done by the CAG is proper or not. So this is what the committees or the financial committees do. So basically, there are three financial committees. There is one public account committee, then there is one estimates committee. Now, what is this estimates committee? In simple words, it is going to look into the estimates of the budget, whether the money demanded by each ministry is proper or not, whether the money spent by each ministry is proper or not. Then there is something called as Committee on Public Undertakings. Now, what is this Committee on Public Undertakings? Very simple. There are different government organizations. For example, LIC. Then there is also something called as ONGC, Indian Oil, etc. These kind of bail, sale, gain, etc. These kind of government organizations are what we call as public undertakings. Okay, so the money of the expenses, the withdrawal or the expenditure and receipt of these organizations are audited by this committee called as Committee on Public Undertakings. Now, these committees were constituted in the independent India in the year 1980. In the year 1980, these committees were constituted. Now, these three committees, out of all the parliamentary committees, see, having the basic idea of parliamentary committees is very important. Okay. Now, apart from that, see, when we say parliamentary committees in the Indian Parliament, there are more than 30, 35 parliamentary committees, specifically the select committees, and then there are a lot of like ad hoc committees that are also formed. But the most important ones are the select committee. Out of the select committees, is it possible practically for us to study about all the 35 parliamentary committees, the standing parliamentary committees? Not possible. So what is important for us is we need to understand, or we need to study the most important parliamentary committees. So what are the most important parliamentary committees? The most important of the parliamentary committees is these three financial committees. So these three financial committees, they are the most important of the parliamentary committees. Apart from these three parliamentary committees, any any parliamentary committee that is in news becomes important. For example, 1 year back, there was ethics committee. There was a committee called as ethics committee that was in news. So any idea why this ethics committee was in news? Because this ethics committee recommended expulsion of Mahua Moitra from the parliament. Okay, so this ethics committee became important from the examination perspective from on that particular year. And in the year 2024, there was a question that was asked on ethics committee. So current affairs becomes important from that particular year. Apart from that, these three financial committees are most important for us to learn.